everybody. Welcome to the latest episode of the Female Film Critics Panel. And this is a show where we are going to be talking about the Toronto International Film Festival, which we just came back from. We're going to be sharing our experiences and what we thought of different films and the festival as a whole. And it's going to be a ton of fun. And I am film critic Rachel Wagner, and Alise Chaffins is here.
Heyo!
Yeah.
And we got
Well,
to meet in the real,
yes,
which
we
was very cool.
did. Which was so fun. That was my favorite, by far, my favorite part of the festival was getting to spend time with my movie friends.
Yeah, for sure.
Because I don't have that many friends that live close by me. I've got, some of course, but a lot of my friends live far away, so going to the festivals, that's one of my favorite parts.
Yeah, for sure. And especially like movie friends in particular.
Yeah.
It's just a whole different thing. So
They
that was
get it.
extra fun. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Have you ever done a festival like this before?
No, I've only ever attended one really small, very hyper specific kind of film festival. I went to
Uh-huh.
the Appalachian Queer Film Festival a
Oh,
couple
wow.
years ago. So,
Yeah.
yeah, there were like, I don't know, 30 of us or so in a theater and they just played what they played. And that was it. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I was kind of spinning out a little bit in advance of TIFF because I was like, I don't know
Yeah.
what anything means. And there are like a million people in this. And like, yeah, it was a very different experience, but it was awesome, and I had such
So
a good
what inspired you to go, and why TIFF was the one that you picked?
time. Well, I wanted to go to TIFF in particular because it was one I could drive to. It's only 6 hours from where I live
Uh-huh.
to TIFF. So it's like it's one I can
Drivable.
attend. I won't have to like pay for a flight. You know, there were like expense reasons, whereas like I know this will have expenses, but it felt a little more doable than something like Sundance or whatever.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
which I still have applied to Sundance, so we'll see. But yeah,
Ah.
everything, and then I'll be out your way. So,
Yeah, you could even I have guest room. You can even
oh,
stay if you wanted.
well, there we go. So
Um,
we'll see.
yeah, that would be fun.
But yeah, so
Yeah. This was my first year going to TIFF. I had been accepted before, but then I lost my job like the week after
mm,
I was accepted. So I was like, well, it doesn't make much sense to go. So I didn't end up going. I think that was 2023 is when I
mm,
and then I have done a bunch of other festivals before. I of course have done Sundance being by here, but I have also done South by Southwest, I think 3 times. And I do
yes,
have a friend I could stay with there. That makes it so much more doable.
yeah.
And then I have been to New York Film Festival 3 times. And really, I feel like New York Film Festival and Toronto Film Festival, they're very, very similar. Uh,
Okay.
they basically get almost all the same things. There might be a couple things that wait premiere at TIFF, but they're very close. I don't think it would make any sense to go to both of them.
Right on.
You know,
Yeah. Yeah, it definitely made me want to go back. I had a really, really fun
yeah.
time. So,
It was a lot of fun. There were a lot of really good movies, and I mean, with Sundance, you do have to have sort of a thick skin because there are a lot more bad ones,
mm,
and they haven't been as screened over, picked through. Because I think by the time they get to TIFF, they've been at cons, they've been at Venice, they've been at Telluride, they've been at Sundance, they've been at South by Southwest, just different. And so, I mean, there were some bad ones, and we'll talk about it. But I don't know. I just feel like there was a pretty good. They've been picked over a little bit more than
yeah,
at
that's fair.
Sundance, so that's good. But yeah, it was really fun. I was proud of myself because I went on like as cheap as humanly possible approach. I stayed at the youth hostel, and so that's as cheap as you can get.
That is, I'd looked at that.
Yeah,
I went
I
right
gotta.
next door to that.
Oh, you were
Not to
okay.
the hostel, but I did
Oh yeah,
like a far more communal space kind
yeah,
of like Airbnb, but it was a much
yeah.
smaller space, and yeah.
It just made sense to me because I mean I was barely there. I really just needed a bed. And I mean,
Right.
I was at the festival from like 8 a.m. in the morning until almost midnight every day.
Right.
So there's just no point in, investing a lot in a place you're not there. I mean, the
Right.
only thing that would have been nicer if I had my own room is that I could have done some more filming and things like that. So content wise, that might have been nice. But other than that, there's really no point. But yeah, I did go super cheap. I mean, I even barely ate while I was there. Like we went out one time.
Yeah, yep.
So
Yeah, I went out one day. I took a really light second day and
yeah.
took myself to lunch because I hadn't eaten for like the first 2 days, like the drive-in and everything. I just didn't eat and
Yeah.
everything. And I took myself out to lunch and accidentally ordered myself a pitcher of sangria instead of a glass. So
Oh
that was
no.
I was like, oh, that's not what I meant. So that was fun.
That's funny. The funny thing at this taco place that we went to, and like in the States, when you order a taco, usually that's like a taco. It's assumed that it's like a taco plate in a sit down
Right.
place, like
Right.
so if you're going to like Del Taco, then you individually tacos, but most sit down places use it's just like there's an assumption that you get one taco plus some rice and beans or something like that, salsa, whatever. And I couldn't believe it. It was so funny. So I ordered one taco at this place, and it literally came out just one tiny like street taco in the middle of a plate with nothing else, like not even a garnish, just like one taco.
Oh, hey.
That was so funny.
Oh
Jeez.
gosh.
But anyway, so yeah, I got my big filling dinner, my one taco.
Of one taco.
But yeah, it was a good experience. And I mean, luckily they had like quite a bit of food at the Scotia Theater to
Yeah,
pick from. That was nice. They had like poutine and pizza and hot dogs, and so it was more than just popcorn. So that was
right.
good. But yeah, let's dive in. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about the movies that I saw, movies you saw, and then I also thought we'd just go on some of the big names that neither of us saw. That we'll
Yeah,
just check out what people on Letterboxd are saying. That might be kind of a fun way to do it.
yeah.
So yeah, let us know what you think about these movies. Are you excited about them? Which ones sound most interesting to you? And we'd love to hear that in the comments. But let's dive in. And I thought we'd just go with my what's the best method? I let's start with some of the disappointments.
That sounds good because that's
Yeah,
what I was gonna
get them
start
out of the
with.
way. The first one is an animated film called Bukra, and really like this I don't say this very often, but I really don't think this is like a watchable film. The
Wow.
animation is so gross and just unpleasant looking. It feels, I don't think it was AI, but it has that sort of feeling,
That
the
sheen.
plasticky, yeah,
Yeah.
the sheen. It feels, and they took these conversations of these queer lesbian women, mostly women talking, but they're but it's just like talking about their day and like what they did.
Mm,
Like it's not a narrative. There's no, it's just these conversations. And I don't know. I just feel like I can understand in the 90s when there just was less queer content, why why you would want to sort of co-opt almost anything or lean onto anything that was for that community. But there's so much that's great now. There's no reason to sort of like excuse something like this just
mm,
because it is coming from a queer perspective. Like it has to be good for that. Like any community deserves quality content, and this was just, it was bad. It was really bad. So
Yeah. Yeah, I think my least favorite was Rose of Nevada. And it was a film that I went in and I thought that the premise of it was really interesting because this boat, the Rose of Nevada, just kind of like shows up after being gone for 30 years. And as people like join the crew, they kind of like go back and essentially take the place of the original crew from 30 years ago. So I thought this was kind of a really interesting idea. And I'll be honest, if I'd been sitting on the outside of an aisle, I would have left in the first half hour,
Yeah.
which is
Oh
before
wow.
anything even happened.
Is this documentary or narrative?
No, no, it was a narrative film, but it had no narrative to it. It
Yeah.
was
Oh
literally
no.
the first half hour is just like George McKay basically staring off into the middle distance. And that was kind of what everybody did. There just wasn't, it was an interesting concept that just didn't have any emotional resonance for me
Yeah.
at all. I was just like, the main thing that I enjoyed about it, I guess, was that the sound design is really interesting, and apparently that's just Mark Jenkin is the director, and apparently that's just kind of what he does is he does all the sound in post. And so in that regard, it's interesting because there are some really like neat sound things that happen in it, but like I'm just a story girl and
Yeah, me too.
this had no story, like nothing that I could like care about. So I
Yeah.
think if people are like really into like maybe the craft of filmmaking, this could like really work for them, but for me
Yeah.
it was a nothing.
Yeah. I'm the same. I people say that movies are visual art, visual
Right.
sorry, and of course that is true, but I actually think that they are more of a literary art than they are a visual art.
Yeah.
And that I think that a movie is for the most part more similar to a play than it is to a painting. Just saying,
Yeah.
you know.
I'm with you. Yeah.
Yeah. So, well, next I have definitely the biggest disappointment of the festival is The Ballad of a Small Player.
Mm.
This is from director Edward Bergen, and really, this was a huge mess. I don't know what. I guess it's based on a novel, and you're just like, what is this novel? Because there's just so little story. It just felt like watching for 2 hours watching Colin Farrell be a bad gambler and getting drunk and waking up in weird places and not knowing and like there was no clear delineation between what was like what was fantasy delusion and what was real, and I guess that could be interesting but it just wasn't because nothing came of it. It was just felt
Hmm.
like, okay, is this just like an ad for macaw and the casinos there? Like it was so odd. Did he just want to eat a lot of lobster? What is going on? I just saw no point in it, and it was not for me. And there was a side of me that felt like, okay, did he was like, oh, I just made Conclave about religious people, so now I got to make something the opposite,
Right.
about and it just, I mean, all this talent involved. It was credit like beautifully made. When you've got Colin Farrell, you've got Tilda Swinton, you've got these super talented people, and to just come up with this nothing burger, this is just real disappointment.
Yeah. I think that was for me the Coral. It's the new Ralph Fiennes movie. Um, it's a historical fiction, maybe real. I'm not entirely sure, honestly. World War One, and basically have this choir director who comes in, which is, Ralph Fiennes, and he like takes this kind of community choir and they perform this Elgar piece. And it's a really interesting idea. There are so many fascinating ideas and themes and subjects in this movie. You have this queer choir director and kind of the way that that has done, how that has impacted his life and his, uh, you know, profession. And you have also, he spent a lot of time in Germany at a time where that is not great. And we don't want to have like this interaction with Germany, especially in England. And you have Roger Allam and Mark Addy, and you just have this like crazy great cast. And like, they just didn't do anything with anything. And they talked about all these things, but then every time it started to get interesting or there maybe was something, they'd pivot to another thing. And I just felt like there wasn't a focus for what the story was. And it
Yeah.
just was really frustrating to watch because it just like it's all right there. You're just
That's
right on the edge of this, like
yeah.
genuinely, even if it's a small thing of a community coming together to create art and beauty in the midst of like the pain of war. I was like, that is already a super compelling story. Just tell that. And they just
Yeah.
meandered so much that it just frustrated me at almost every turn.
If you want to see a good movie that has similar to, it's just came out. It's called Tina. It's an indie.
Okay.
Yeah, it's really good. It's set in New Zealand. It's about this woman. She's had this tragedy with the earthquake that happened there, and so she is trying to figure out her life. And she becomes a substitute teacher and particularly a substitute choral director for these teens, and they just that the experience that is, and the music is great. The choral music is absolutely beautiful, and that was just a very heartwarming, lovely little movie with a great lead performance. So it's a shame because when I saw this I was like, "Ooh, that sounds like a good
Yeah.
movie."
The
Yeah.
same. It was one that I was really excited to get in to see, and then
Yeah.
mm.
Well, next up for me is a movie that I admit that I was not in an objective headspace to watch this movie, but I have normal next because so I found out about the assassination, the Charlie Kirk assassination in my like very close to where I live. Like that made it even more upsetting, and um and so then literally 30 minutes later I'm going into normal and this hyper violent movie, and so I was not in a, a a good space, for this kind of entertainment. But man, even if I was, I just feel like there's got to be a limit, man. I mean, this thing
Mm,
is just like most violent movies. There's like some sacred characters that are safe, and that you can kind of be rooting for. And aside from Bob Odenkirk's character, there really isn't anybody. I mean, everybody is kind of suspect. I mean, maybe there's
mm,
one other female character, but I mean, and it's just brutal. It's so over the top that it's not like it's gritty realism. I understand that, and I understand that people will enjoy this. Definitely has its audience, but I don't know, just like golly, people are blown up. People are, just you have the scenes where just somebody takes a Gatling gun type thing, boom, 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 and just takes
okay.
out a whole wall of people. And at a certain point, it's just like there's I don't know, there's just gotta be a point where it's too much, and this was
Right.
definitely my point.
Yours.
And I wouldn't log my review because I don't think I was in a fair headspace, but, I don't wanna see it again. But yeah, it was a lot.
Yeah.
It's about Bob Odenkirk, he becomes the sheriff of this town. He's interim sheriff, and there's this conspiracy with this like Japanese organized crime cartel. And
Mm,
that's why things become very bloody and very over the top. But like I said, it'll definitely have its appeal. Some people will like it. It just wasn't for me.
yeah.
So what
Yeah.
would what would you have
Another,
next?
yeah, another one that didn't, that maybe isn't like terrible, but didn't quite work as well as that I feel like has potential, but didn't quite work for me was Charlie Harper.
Uh
And there were elements of it that I think are really beautiful. It has this nonlinear storytelling kind of thing. And I think it was a little more successful than We Live in Time was with that same like convention. Um, but it's really just about a failed relationship in your 20s. I mean, that's essentially what the film is. And it had some, yeah, again, some like really beautiful moments in it, but it also included this voiceover that they do work into the movie in a way that kind of works, but because of how, and I don't want to get too spoilery with it, but because of the way the film is structured, you can't really explain why this voiceover is happening until almost the end. And then it kind of makes sense, but also it just feels a lot like, hey, this is what we're trying to tell you in this movie. Make sure you get it. And it just, to me, felt really obnoxious at times. Like, ugh, I understand what you're trying to say. You don't have to like handhold me through all this.
Yeah,
And
I
like
hate
that,
that.
yeah, it was just really irritating. And then it also kind of wants to tell the same story from the two people's perspectives, but it doesn't do that consistently. And so you'll have these moments where it's like, oh, this is how he remembers it, and then this is how she remembers it. But they don't do that through the whole film. And so it feels in those times again just kind of like a cheap decision, like, oh, again, we're going to just make sure you understand this kind of thing, that our memories aren't super, reliable, but only when it really serves us in the story rather than
That
making
was the
it the thing that
problem.
we do.
That was the problem I had with Life with Chuck.
I
Everybody
have
loves
not,
so
I
much.
still haven't seen that
I've
one.
seen it. Well, and it's just like I thought the points that they made were very obvious. Like I'm not saying I'm like the most spiritually aware person in the world, but I don't know. I just feel like dance to the beat of your own drum and live life to its fullest. Like it's not like it's like super. This is tough stuff. Do you know? Like this is basic Hallmark greeting card. Kind of things. I felt like, and not only was it very basic, but then they have the narration telling you what it means, and
Yeah,
it's just
that
like I didn't need it. I got it.
it's so rare that narration adds much to a film.
Yeah.
And in this one, like I said, the way they explain it kind of works, but because of the way it is, you really can't
Yeah.
explain it until the end. And the nope.
I feel like the only time narration really works is if it's to add humor, like in a Christmas story, having
Yeah,
read
yeah,
that, like that narrator is kind of adds a sarcasm that's fun. Or like maybe you could make an argument like in Lord of the Rings, the
the
opening
opening expo dump. Yeah,
exposition. But it almost always, yeah, it doesn't. It shows a lack of confidence, I think, on the part of the director that you didn't sell the story, you didn't sell the message enough, so you got to add this narration.
yeah. And that
Yeah,
was how that was my largest complaint with Charlie Harper.
yeah.
Are you a fan of Rachel's reviews? Do you look forward to Family Movie Night, Female Film Critics panels, or the Talking Disney podcast? If so, please consider supporting the podcast by becoming a Patreon. As a patron, you get to access monthly events such as the watch-alongs and Q&As, where you get to talk to stars and find out the behind the scenes of the movie making industry. And you can pick what I review for Family Movie Night or even become a guest on the podcast. Podcasts and YouTube channels are expensive, and I really, really could use your help. I would so appreciate it. You also get to be a member of the Facebook group where we talk about all the films that we're seeing, and we have so much fun. Go to patreon.com/hallmarkies and select one of the Rachel's fan tiers. That's patreon.com/hallmarkies.
Next one for me, another disappointment is the Smashing Machine.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
so especially the buzz that this got out of cons, I think it
Oh,
was.
much. Yeah.
Yeah, huge, won awards and
I
stuff.
think Venice, it was really huge too.
Yeah, I get those
Did
two
it play there?
confused, but
Yeah.
yeah,
I can't remember.
it
Yeah.
was one of them that it got a bit of buzz out of. And I think that I did admire the way that the Rock is able to just sort of immerse himself in the role. And if he got a nomination, I wouldn't be upset because he is very good in this role. And you're not sitting there thinking, oh, that's The Rock. Like you're thinking this is the character. Like he really
That's
does
awesome.
become. So that was very impressive. And I do think Emily Blunt is good, but I thought the dialogue that they gave her was very weak. And you're
Mhm.
supposed to sort of dislike her, but they give almost no actual reasons for
Mm.
us to dislike her. Is that she like is reading, and that's shown as being like, oh, she's not paying attention to him, or I don't know. There was just very little that she, I guess, drinks, oh, and she does some drugs, but like I didn't see her doing anything that was threatening his sobriety or, being, I don't know. She was just, I felt like, did they cut scenes that I was like, there has to have been more shot with her character because it seemed like such a weak, flimsy, poorly written character.
Mm.
And I almost wish that the movie had been about the other guy, Coleman, the other, because he seemed more interesting to me. He was like a family man, trying to balance everything, and then his friendship with uh the Rock's character, like he seemed just more interesting to me. Whereas this, like the drug abuse and the thing, it just felt so like, oh my gosh, we've seen this arc so many times in these kinds of movies, and we didn't get a sense of like a real emotional journey. I don't think for him, it was kind of like, well, I was on drugs and they helped me, and now I'm not,
Mm.
and that's about it. Like, so
Yeah,
I
right,
I
right.
think the screenplay was unfortunately quite weak, which is unfortunate. But so that's where I had Smashing Machine. What did you have next?
Yeah, for me next was Steve, which is the new Cillian Murphy film with Tim Millance, and that's coming to Netflix shortly, so everyone will
Okay.
be able to see that one soon. Um, yeah, I mean, Murphy is astounding. He's so good. No matter what he's in, he is gonna be good. He is gonna in my mind, he's just always gonna shine. So this is basically it's just following a single day in a teacher at a reform school and a pretty important day. It's based on a novel called Shy, which is one of the other characters, and it's one of the students, and then they rewrote it to focus on Steve, the teacher. I don't know if that was a great call. I guess that is kind of my biggest frustration is it doesn't fall into some of the like white savior teacher heals the sad, reform school students that many of these kind of films do. It doesn't fall into that trap as much, but it's just, I don't know, it just didn't quite
Yeah, it
work
just
for
doesn't
me.
do it.
It
Yeah.
just, I don't know. The filming is very chaotic in ways that I don't super love.
Mm.
Um, and that's again, that's a personal thing. I just don't like real whip pans and flying around the room and,
Oh yeah, I
stuff
don't
that's
either.
just, and that's
Yeah.
basically the entirety of this movie. Um, yeah, again, it's not terrible. I think there are going to be people who this really resonates for. And again, I appreciated that it didn't go down the white savior path that I really thought it could. But it also just, I don't think it's as profound as maybe it wants to be.
Yeah, yeah. Well, my next one is my last, I would probably go rotten on. Everything else I would go fresh on. And this is an
Right on.
unpopular opinion. A lot of people love this movie at the festival. It's called It Was Just an Accident. And
Ah, I missed that one.
yeah,
Everybody
this is
was
from
very
director Jafar
positive about that.
Panahi, who I love, and he's incredibly talented, but I don't know that it's a mixed bag. There were things I liked. Um the filming and getting to see sort of this side of Iran is interesting, and there are some good performances. But it's basically about this man, and he ends up there's this bully who's also part of the government that that had treated him very unkindly, and so out of vengeance, they basically abduct him, and it's kind of like, well, what are we going to do with them? We have this person, and there are some things about that really work. You can feel the rage and the anger and things like that. But what I guess the humor really just did not land for me. Other people in the audience were laughing, so maybe I was just in a bad mood. I don't know, but I did not think it was funny. And and then a lot of the back and forth between the people in this man they've abducted was a lot of screaming. It just felt like, oh my gosh, this is 2 hours of just people screaming. And so I didn't like it. I didn't like it, but most other people seem to have really liked it. So, go
Yeah.
figure. Um, but that was a miss for me. So, but that would be the last. Everything else I would go fresh on from here
Right.
on forward. So what would you have next?
So my next one is, again, it's a little bit of a mixed bag for me. It was called Baby Star. It's a German film about a family of influencers. Um, and the daughter, who has been basically in the public eye her entire life, to the point where, they're filming her whole birth and filming her first, use of the potty kind of thing. And it's an interesting story because I think I mean, it's something that we're dealing with now, or kids who have been raised without any like choice of their own to be a, personality on the internet without choosing that for themselves. And so I think that is something that we're going to see. Unfortunately, this movie just didn't feel like it either went too far or not far enough. It felt like it hit this weird middle ground for me of like the parents weren't as abhorrent as I think you need to make them truly like awful, and they weren't as sympathetic as you could make them to give some like context or understanding for why they would do this. It just hit this weird middle ground where I just didn't like them, but I couldn't like muster up, oh, how could you do this to your daughter either? And
Yeah.
it just didn't, I was kind of surprised because it just didn't feel like it went far enough, like truly on one
Mhm.
way or the other. I think there's a way it could have hit a better place, but it just, for me, it didn't. It just
Yeah.
didn't, it missed.
My
So,
next is actually one of the animated films. It's Arco. This is a beautiful film. I think it probably will get nominated for animated feature because this year's, just a weird year for animation. But it's beautiful. It has some nice themes. It's about this kid who lives in this sci-fi planet, and where at a certain age you get to basically you get taught how to fly, and but he wants to learn early. He gets and so he starts to fly early, and then ends up taking him to this other reality where there's this girl who's very lonely, and he becomes friends with this girl. But then how is he going to get back to his home planet? Anyway, it's all this stuff. It was a little boring for me. I wasn't that in love with the story, but I'm not that big of a sci-fi person, so it's
mm.
not really my taste. But it was very pretty, so I get that, but I would give it a mild recommendation just for the animation, but it wasn't it wasn't my favorite.
Right, right.
But what would you have next?
So next for me is And Sons, from Pablo Trapero, and it was a really unique story. It wasn't what I expected, and I kind of loved that. It's the kind of movie, the log line, something along the lines of just a dad who's trying to reconnect with his estranged sons. And that is what it is, but it's a much more interesting story than that. And I kind of loved that about it. Every single person in it is spectacular. Bill Nighy's in it. Noah Jupe gives a really great performance in it. Um,
Oh, he's in
yeah,
Hamnet
he was
too.
in my favorite. Yeah, exactly. George McKay, who was in my least favorite, also in this. And so yeah, but it was just a really interesting story, and just I really liked the way that it tackled, yeah, not just who you are in the context of this relationship, like as a parent or a spouse or a sibling, but also just, yeah, how that affects who you are yourself, and like how do you kind of like sort those things out. And I thought it was a really unique story. I thought it was well performed. It looked really interesting. Yeah, it was. I quite enjoyed it.
My next is one I actually watched on Screener, so I didn't watch it at the festival. I watched it yesterday. But it's called Swiped, and I actually enjoyed it. It's nothing like amazing. It's not surprising that it's going like straight to Hulu, I think it is.
Okay.
Because it does feel like a streaming movie, but I think well done, entertaining one. It's Lily James, and she plays Whitney Wolf. This is a it's loosely based on true. She's a real person, Whitney Wolf, but I think the events portrayed are loose adaptation because she has a non-disclosure, so she couldn't actually be from her own diaries or writings or whatever. So basically this is like an unofficial biography, if that makes sense.
Right.
But she's Whitney Wolf was one of the founders of Tinder. And so her experiences being kind of a woman in a very male in these tech heavy world. She also and she's founded Bumble. That was kind of her pushback after Tinder. And Dan Stevens, he plays one of the investors of Bumble. And has this kind of funny Russian accent. He plays Andre.
I mean, anytime we're giving Dan Stevens an accent, I'm here for
yeah.
it.
Again, this is not going to change your life, but it was entertaining. If you want like a little girl power, fun little movie, it's watchable.
Right on.
So what would you have next?
So next is probably The Man in My Basement. This is one I watched as a screener, not at the festival. But it was just a really interesting story about a man, Willem Dafoe, who goes and moves into this other man's basement, a black man's basement, played by Corey Hawkins, and just the ways that we like choose to imprison ourselves, and like they have these really interesting back and forth questions. I think this is coming to Hulu at the end of this month as well, so I'll be interested to see what people think about this one because I thought it was really fascinating. I think it's very unconventional kind of storytelling. It uses a lot of like dream sequences and stuff like that, but I think the themes are strong enough that even though some of the narrative maybe is a little meandering, I think the themes are strong enough to carry it through.
Now we're getting to my top 10.
Okay.
And my number 10 is actually where I have Frankenstein. So this is
Okay.
Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein. And I think it's always neat to see a different creator, especially someone as visually unique as Guillermo del Toro, to see their take on a classic story. Here we have Frankenstein been told many, many times at the movies, and so that's interesting. I thought it was a little bit strange that he decided to basically. I kind of joked that he turned the monster into Wolverine, like he's immortal. He can't be injured. He immediately heals himself, if he's
Hmm.
stabbed or hurt in any way. And so I'm not sure why he decided to add that layer to the Frankenstein monster, that, he has to deal, he can never die. He's very upset. It's been a while since I read the book, but I don't think that's in the book.
I don't think so.
That but yeah, so that was why he decided to add on immortality. I don't know. It splits it into two parts. In a way, this does feel actually very at home with Netflix because it feels long. But
Mm.
it just feels sort of episodic, almost like something you might want to watch on Netflix. So, but it is of course beautiful, and I'm glad I did get to see it on big screen. But the first part is from Victor's perspective, and then the second part is from the monster's perspective.
Ooh, that's
And
cool.
they specifically didn't want to have Frankenstein's monster have like the stitching and the bolts and some of the other things that we've seen in other versions. They wanted it to look unique. And Jacob Elordi, he definitely does a good job with the performance. And I mean, I liked it. I appreciated it. You have Mia Goth. She is kind of a love interest in the story. I mean, she's fine. Everything. This was fine. This was your sort of classic, somewhat forgettable Netflix big budget, movie. And it does feel like a bit of a shame because you think that, oh my gosh, Guillermo del Toro doing Frankenstein is going to be like amazing, and it's not, but it's
Oh,
certainly like watchable.
right on.
It's okay. That I think most people would feel that way about it. And I think we will see it come Oscars. I mean, I'm surprised that it did so well as far as the People's awards. It did. I think it got second place. So I'm surprised
Right.
about that. But I mean, you'll see it around for, I think, for costumes, maybe cinematography, visual effects, maybe, although there's some bad ones, particularly with the wolves. There's some bad wolves. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if you see it in some of those. Makeup's probably the biggest likelihood, the makeup, particularly on the monster. But yeah, I guess in a way it is a disappointment because people thought, oh, this is going to be amazing, and it's not. But it's like,
Yeah.
it's not awful either.
Right.
So, but what would you have next?
So next for me is Good Boy, which is this really bizarre. So there are two Good Boys coming out
Yes, this
right
is
now
not
because this is not the
dog one. Okay,
This is not the dog story. This is about a drug addict who gets kidnapped off the streets and like chained up in a person's home like a
oh
dog.
my gosh,
That's it. But it is genuinely funny at places, like weirdly funny and like thoughtful and interesting. And I really didn't know what I was going into with this one. Stephen Graham is incredible in it. He's so good. And it's just this really odd but interesting movie, and I loved the way that it looked at, yeah, like rehabilitation and kind of the way that we do that. And is this, it feels so horrific, but also is it way different than kind of what we already do? It was just a
oh,
really interesting, thoughtful, cool film. I don't know if it'll come anywhere. I hope it does because it was
it's a
I
good
dug
one.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. Well, my next one is the one that we almost saw together, but there wasn't enough spots. It's The Testament of Anne Lee. And this is a movie that I appreciate more than I love. Like, I'm glad I saw it. I'm glad I learned about Anne Lee. The Shakers, I really knew very little. So not that you should take everything that's in historical movies as gospel, but it was interesting to learn a little bit about her and the movement and everything. And it's very well made and very well acted. The music, I really enjoyed the music. It does feel, the reason why I would hold it back is that it does feel pretty repetitive. That with Anne, she kind of gets to a certain point, and she's angry as far as her husband, and she's always been kind of disgusted by human sexuality, even she with her mom and her mom having all these babies, and then she is really repulsed by it, and she thinks it's wrong, and she loses all four of her babies as infants or stillborn, and so it's brutal. Like, that part of it is tough, but I felt kind of like up to that point you saw all this growth of her character, and then once she becomes a prophet, it's kind of just, oh, that's it. Like, we don't see a lot of growth or change. It's like nobody in the movement can live up to her standards and her ideals, and people just keep like leaving and so that, I guess, that was maybe what made it a little boring. Granted, it was late, I was
Yeah.
tired. And so I liked it. It was good, but yeah, I just felt like, oh my gosh, it just felt a little repetitive in
Yeah.
this story. So there's a side of me that's like, I would rather just watch like, oh, there Ken Burns on the Shakers. I'll just watch that instead of this movie.
Fair.
But Amanda Seyfried is very good, and I could definitely see her getting nominated for this.
Yeah.
What do you have next?
So next for me is a new Hamlet from Anil Karia and starring Riz Ahmed. And it was just it's basically the new like Romeo plus Juliet kind of thing, in that it is a modern setting, but uses all the, you know, Shakespearean language. So in that regard, it's really interesting. Sometimes that butts against the modernness of it, and so there are places where it doesn't quite translate, but I will say Hamlet in the middle of a car, like in a car, driving as fast as he can, doing the kind of like hands off, eyes closed, giving the to be or not to be speech is very effective. It's just really, really good. So there are moments when it's just like spectacular, and I think it works really well. I think the way they do Fortinbras is just really, really smart, and yeah, it's so there are aspects of it that I think are really fantastic. Every once in a while it kind of, yeah, I think the language butts up against the modern setting in
Mm.
ways that
It,
don't quite work, but it's yeah,
it's
overall I
interesting
think
because
it
we
works.
have 3 movies at the festival that are influenced or inspired by Hamlet, which
Yeah,
is because you got Hamlet, and you have Scarlet, all 3.
right. Which
Wild.
is
And you think
wild.
about what is it about this year that kind of made everybody thinking about Hamlet,
Right. Yeah, it is. It's interesting.
how
So,
that happens.
yeah. Well, I
Well,
mean, the sad boy, I guess. I don't know of it
yeah.
all.
Well, my next one is one that we both is our first one that we both seen, but I know you have a higher, so I'll wait to talk about it. But I had Blue Moon at 8, but I did enjoy it, and I couldn't help but as I was watching him complain about this Lawrence Hart who did many great musicals. But I couldn't help but think, what would this man think of like Mamma Mia? If he hated Oklahoma so much, which on a modern lens, like Oklahoma actually seems kind of dark, and everything with Jed and that there's like a cynical edge to Oklahoma that if you can imagine like what he would have thought about Wicked. He would have hated Wicked so much, which is just kind of funny. But yeah, so I have that at 8. It's 7. I have California Schemin', and this is a real like crowd pleaser, nice little movie about. It's based on a true story of these 2 guys that they wanted to become rappers. They're from Scotland, but nobody will pay them any attention because I guess people are like racist against Scottish people, and at the time. And so they decide to lie, change their accents, and say they're from California. And that gets them into all of these doors over there in the UK. And but then of course over time like that the lies keep adding up and adding up and adding up. And James McAvoy's directing, but he's also plays like the studio exec guy. It's not reinventing the wheel, but it was entertaining. It was like you could do an interesting double feature with Kneecap, which is Irish rappers, and it with California Scheming Scottish rappers. But both I enjoy.
Hey, this is David from the Piecing It Together podcast, a podcast about movies and the movies that inspire them. For over 4 years, each week, a guest and I take a look at a new movie through the lens of what other movies we think were either an influence or connect in some other way. It's a fun, unique way to discuss films that leads to a great list of other movies to check out that either explore the same themes and ideas or maybe utilize similar filmmaking techniques. Including special episodes in our side series that twist the format, we've done over 200 episodes, so there's bound to be one on a film you've been thinking about and want to dig deeper into. So check us out on all the major podcasting apps and at piecingpod.com.
The next one I have is the Colombian film Noviembre, which is a
Yeah.
dramatized story of this 1985 siege on the Palace of Justice in Colombia. And it basically, the entire film kind of takes place in this bathroom where they held like members of their Supreme Court there. And it's just this really interesting, very intense. It's a short movie. It's 78 minutes. So, I mean, it's quick. And I'll be honest, it's just, you are very glued to it throughout. And like, thriller kind of movies aren't always super my bag, like action thriller kind of things. But this one is just so intense. The storytelling is just really well done. Um, and it's just, yeah, it was a story that I wasn't super familiar with. I was, pretty young in 85, and so, and definitely not tuned into world events at that time.
Yeah.
So it wasn't something that, I was super familiar with, but it certainly made me want to like go and look into it more. And it was a really fascinating and just beautifully done movie.
Oh, that's good. Well, my next, and I think it's probably pretty close to your placement. I've Rental Family.
Yeah, we're close.
Okay,
Yeah,
so let's
that's my
talk
next
about it.
one. Yeah, Rental
Yeah.
Family is my next one.
So Rental Family, when I first heard about it, I was nervous because I thought, oh, is this going to be like the white man explaining how the Japanese should live? That's what it
Right.
sounded like. The premise is about this actor who is hired by Japanese families to play different roles in their families, and but it actually isn't that. If anything, he learns more, than him teaching them. And it's this very sweet. I am surprised that it didn't do better on the People's Choice, the different awards, because it does feel like the kind of movie, like a Coda, like a Green Book, like these kind of movies that that they've embraced in the past at TIFF.
Yeah.
So I'm a little surprised that it didn't do better, but I did like it. I thought it was nice little movie.
Yeah, I agree. It wasn't what I expected.
Yeah, me too.
I expected it to be this very schmaltzy kind of movie. I was like, oh, this one's gonna be real emotionally manipulative, because feel like the trailer is that.
Yeah.
But it's not. Like it's far more subtle, and I think maybe that's what like made it leave people's mind. I
Oh,
appreciate
maybe.
that
Yeah.
about it. It's not one that you're gonna leave and you're gonna have these big emotions like Hamnet. Which is probably why it's at my top. But like for real, it's not that, but it is this just it's this very gentle story, and I kind of love that. And it had more other characters than I thought too. I really thought it was going to be very focused on his relationship with the little girl and being the like fake dad. And that's not probably even the like strongest one, quite honestly, of the relationships that he forms in this film. So it wasn't quite what I expected. I would say if you're going and looking just strictly from the trailer, it's not going to be quite what you expect from that.
Yeah. And I might have thought going into it that it had some Oscar possibilities, if it got some of those awards and things like that. We'll see.
Yeah.
I mean, anything's possible, but maybe an outside chance with Brendan Fraser.
But
But I think
yeah, I feel like that's
I don't
about
think it's
it.
happening for this one.
Yeah,
I mean,
I agree.
Disney would have to put a big campaign. I just don't. They're not going to do that. They're not going to do it for it.
I agree.
So next is actually where I have Hamnet, and I know that's
Okay.
like low for some people, but I did appreciate it, and I did find it very moving, and like just so it's just a matter of personal taste, that I liked some of these other four better. But I did. I mean, when we were walking out, people were like, "That's one of the best movies I've ever seen. That's a masterpiece." I mean, I'm not on that level, but what movie can live up to that kind of?
Yeah.
That's a more. Um, very few movies are on that level, but and you do have to be careful. I've talked about two things that I watch out for when it comes to movies at festivals. That you have, of course, the like super hyped. Sometimes they call them the high altitude movies.
Right.
But then you watch them outside of the altitude, and you're like, this was good, but we were a little intense. And so you have to be a little careful about that. but then also what I call the monkey cage movies. And what a monkey cage movie is for me is, so like for instance, on Wednesday, I saw 3 movies in a row that I didn't like. And then I get to Scarlet. And I definitely, and we'll see when I see it again a second time, because that has high monkey cage possibilities. Because when you, so what happens is like if you're in the monkey cage all day, then you go someplace that's less badly smelling, right? And then it's like, oh my gosh, this smells so good because they've been in the monkey cage all day. And so that's something that can happen at festivals. So you've seen 3 movies that sucked and you didn't like. So then you see something that was like pretty good or even like genuinely really good. But it feels, because you've just seen 3 things you didn't like, it feels like, oh my gosh, this is amazing because you've been in the monkey cage all day, not because it's actually that great. And so that's something that you have to watch out for at a festival.
Yeah.
It's like, is it really that good, or is it a monkey cage movie?
That's fair.
Yeah,
I really,
so-
and I will say that like I was kind of primed for this movie. I really just the story
Hamnet is
itself.
definitely not a monkey cage movie.
No,
I'm just
Hamnet
saying,
is
like,
good. Like it's beautiful.
It's
And
beautiful.
I will say,
it's a good
like,
movie.
it
It's
is.
just when people are putting it as like on a first response saying it's one of the best movies they've ever seen. I'm
Yeah,
like,
it's definitely not a best movie I've ever seen. I will say it's probably going to be one of my favorites this year. And I think that probably will hold for me. Yeah, I'll see on a second viewing, but I think it'll probably hold.
Yeah.
But I will also say that I was very like primed to like this movie just based on the subject matter and everything. As hard as that is going to be like I'm going to have just a stronger emotional response to it. And Jesse Buckley
I mean,
and Paul Mescal, they're both brilliant.
It's beautifully made. It is moving, and you really do get to see it. What I was respecting in a movie is when it's not just your lead protagonist, but you see whole character arcs for somewhat more minor characters, right? And you really do see that, even just with the children, particularly. I mean, the little boy is. I would not be upset or surprised if he gets an Oscar nomination for this role, because he is a supporting actor, because he is absolutely outstanding.
Yeah. And
One
Noah
of the better
Jupe
child
comes in.
performances I've seen.
Noah Jupe comes in as like kind of an offhand, not a nobody character, but he plays Hamlet in the play, and he's not, but he does this really just beautiful performance. I mean, it's my number 1. I'll go ahead and just put it above. But like, no, I mean, I really quite liked it. I can see why. I have another friend who just didn't like it. He just was like, no, it's just way too emotionally manipulative. And I can like, I can understand that as well. I didn't feel that, but I can see where some might see it as overwrought. And I think that is like, again, that was not my response to it, but I can see where people would come at it from that, because it is
very, very,
it's intense. And like, there were a not small number of people, we saw it, I think we both saw it at the press and industry screenings. So you talk about all these like hardened journalist type folks. And there were a bunch of people just like weeping in this movie. So.
And I mean, and Jessie Buckley, I think it's going to be, I think, a fight between her and Amanda Seyfried. They're very similar performances, very similar roles, very similar demands of their characters. So it's tough. I think it'll be a fight between the two of them,
for sure,
of who's going to win. I mean, at least I haven't seen anything else in a female acting performance that's on the level of either of those two.
Yeah,
I can't think of anything this year that would be close. And I'd be so happy, because Jessie Buckley has just given nothing but incredible performances that I've seen. Even
everything.
Even the movies that I haven't been crazy about. Like, she's incredible. And I always say, it's like, it's not fair. She can't be so good at so many different things.
She really
be a great
just
singer.
is.
You're a great actress. Like, pick one. But no, she's really, really good in it. And I think that this is definitely going to be nominated for Best Picture. That is almost a lock.
Yeah,
so,
I would.
Any qualms I have with it, it's just a matter of gradation. Like it being But I gave it a good score. It's very moving. Like I said, the child performance is absolutely
So
devastating.
Good.
Yeah. So next I have a Nouvelle Vague. This is from Richard Linklater.
I missed that
And
one.
he
It's
had a
sad.
double header, which was very surprising that he would have a double header at TIFF, because like South by Southwest is kind of his thing. It's there in Austin where he lives, it's like, so I guess maybe it just wasn't done. Who knows? I'd be curious to know why he did 2 at TIFF instead of South by Southwest. But anyway, this I was nervous about going to see it, but I ended up just having this window, and so I ended up rushing it and seeing it, because I haven't seen Breathless, the movie. It's about the making of Breathless. I haven't seen Breathless. I've seen other Godard. I just haven't seen that one. But even so, this is very charming. Very it feels, even with the Godard that I have seen, it feels okay. This is probably how it went down. This is accurate. Like what he did. And it kind of reminded me of The Artist. It's hard not to not think of The Artist, the way that was an homage to silent movie making, this kind of an homage to French New Wave and then that sort of era of filmmakers and that we don't have as much of now. It doesn't feel very Richard Linklater-ish. Like there's not a lot of it that feels like his other work. Maybe if you went back to something like Slacker, maybe something like that, I guess. But I don't know. It's just, but also we don't give Linklater, I don't think, enough credit for the variety of work that he does have.
Right.
Everything from School of Rock to Dazed and Confused to the Before movies. I mean, if anything, this probably does have the most in common with the Before movies as far as his repertoire. Just how light and fun and it's not trying to. It's not like Boyhood, kind of trying to have a deeper meaning. This is just a lark. This is a fun, thing. So I really did enjoy it, and now I've got to see Breathless.
Yeah, there you go.
But sure. I do think with the right campaign, if we got I'm not sure if it's A24 or Neon. I think maybe Neon has this. I'm not sure. But anyway, with the right campaign, I think it could actually go somewhere, especially for some supporting performances that you could see in it. But it was cute. Nice. So I'm are you finished? You don't have as many as I do.
No, I have. Well, we talked about Hamnet kind of already. I have 2 more on my list.
So what do you have next?
So next I have No Other Choice, which I wish
I could have gone to this.
Yeah, I really enjoyed this one. It was just so funny. Like, truly, it's really genuinely funny, and it's horrifying. And if you like Squid Game and the front man, Lee Byung-hun, he's in it and he's the lead and he is fantastic. Yeah, it was just, I really didn't, again, it was one that I didn't really kind of go in with like a whole lot of expectation one way or the other. I mean, I knew Park Chan-wook, it was probably going to be good. And like it had all the buzz, but it was just this really funny and interesting movie about a man getting laid off from making paper for, his whole life and trying to figure out how he can get a job doing that and realizing, oh, the only way I can do that is to kill the people who are probably going to get the job ahead of me.
Oh, wow.
And
so is it like a thriller?
Kind of, but it's thriller, comedy, drama. It's just like family drama kind of thing. It was just a really interesting blend of film genres, and I love the way it's done. It's just really, really fun. The story is just fascinating and interesting without being like, I don't want to say that it's like this wholly unique story or anything, but I think the way he put it together is just really interesting. And I think it did win. Cool. I believe it won People's Choice International. Yeah. And like, that doesn't surprise me because it's really fun. I think people are going to enjoy this one.
Oh, that's good. My number 3 is where I have Eternity. And I love afterlife movies. That's a favorite of mine.
Right.
And so this was right up my alley. But basically the concept, it's a rom-com as well, but it's so Elizabeth Olsen, she plays this woman who, when she dies, she goes to the afterlife, and when she gets there, her husband, who had died just a few months before, is there, and then her first husband, who died in war, is also there. Both of them are waiting for her, and what is she going to do? And so she has to decide who she wants to go into the next step with, next pick. And it's really funny too, because not only does she have to pick, but each person has to pick their version of heaven. So there's all these different,
that's interesting.
Yeah, it's like a trade show floor where all these different people saying, come and go into our version. This is like the super mall, or there'll be like oh gosh, I wish I could remember any off the top of my head, but it's like there's old biblical heaven, and there's all of these different old west. You want to live in like the old west, just different if you want to be in a cabin, or in the desert or whatever. So that's fun, and seeing her have to try to pick between these two men. And I did worry, I'm like, if they written themselves into a corner, because they do keep both of them pretty likable. So you're like, oh no, I'm gonna feel bad whichever one she doesn't pick. But I think they did a pretty good job with and the ending felt satisfying enough to me. So I really enjoyed it. And then the other two, which I know you don't have, so number 2 is where I have Nirvana, the band, the show, the movie. It's really a tie for me with this 1 and 2, because they're so different, you can't compare them. But I loved this so much, and I had seen it at South by Southwest, and I loved it there. I just thought it was so funny, and what they do and what they pull off. I mean, really, my mouth is agape. I couldn't believe it, and and so I was like, I knew I had to see it again, because who knows when it'll actually get released in the States, because there's all these copyright nightmare in the movie. But but it's hard to explain. It's a very difficult movie to explain, but it's basically these two guys, they really want to perform at this club called the Rivoli, and I guess that's a big thing. That's the thing on their television show. Anyway, and so they come up with all these different crazy plans, and one of them ends up involving time travel, and they invent a time machine, and and so they end up going back in time, and there's alternate versions. It's crazy, and like what's fun about it is that not everybody in the scenes knows that they have real life responses. People are blurred out. You get their actual real response, and so it has sort of there's a blending of reality and fiction, which is hilarious. And it was fresh, exciting, new, funny, a friendship story, which I'm always a big fan of. And so I'm excited for people to see it, but then I don't want to be one of those like out of Hamnet people saying it was the best movie I've ever seen, and then people are like, what? So
I all the buzz I heard was it was hilarious.
I worry about that. That's one of my biggest worries as a critic. It was just like stuff that I love. I know it's not perfect, but I loved it. Right. But I hope other people will love it. I worry just this name. People are gonna like, what is this name? But I guess that's the name of the show. Right. Keep an eye out for it. It's really fun.
We'd like to take a second and thank our sponsor for this episode of the podcast. It's the Hallmarkies merch store.
Are you looking for that perfect gift for the postable, hearty, or Hallmarky in your life?
What about getting that t-shirt or hoodie that will help you stand out at your next holiday party?
Now is the time to check out the Hallmarkies merch store.
Full of festive designs by artists like Jessica Miller, Carrie from Hallmark Comics, and more.
You can even have more than just shirts, but totes, cell phone cases, notebooks, mugs, and more.
And it isn't just Hallmark. We have designs for Anna Green Gables, Man from Snowy River, The Nanny, and more.
Every purchase at the merch store goes to help support the podcast and allows us to make the great content you know and love.
There are frequent sales, so go to tpublic.com/stores/hallmarkies or see the link in the description.
That's tpublic.com/stores/hallmarkies.
My number one is Scarlet. This is by Mamoru Hosada. This is by Mamoru Hosada, and it's kind of cool because he did a movie called Belle a couple of years ago, which I loved, and this was his sort of sci-fi new take on Beauty and the Beast. That he loved of course, the classic Disney film, but he wanted to do his own stamp on that basic story, and he did it with such humanity and heart, and I loved it so much. But this is basically his take on The Lion King. It's very different in obviously so many ways, but it's still that basic Hamlet story. The princess, her father is killed by the greedy uncle. She's trying to get revenge on the uncle. She ends up going on a journey. All those elements are all there. It is beautiful. The animation is incredible. The sound, the music is great. I just heard some people complaining about the world building, and I can understand that because it's a little bit like, what is afterlife and what is not afterlife, and it's a little all over the place. It's kind of like whatever he wants it to be in that moment. And there's people from the future and there's people from the past, and it is a little messy, but I didn't mind it. I thought it had enough heart and soul and to really enjoy it, and something fresh and a new take on a classic story. So that would be my other top pick. But let's talk about your two top picks.
Well, we already talked about Hamnet. That was my number one, but we didn't talk much about Blue Moon when we
so let's talk about
that. So that was the first movie that I saw, walked in, first, screening that I went into. And I have been a long time fan of Ethan Hawke. Like, I've loved him since I was a kid and saw him in Dead Poets, and I've probably had a crush on him my entire life. And I thought he just gave, for me, probably one of my favorite performances that I've ever seen him give. I utterly loved him. This is the talkiest movie you're going to watch all year.
It really did feel like a one-man play.
It is. Yeah.
It did. And I think that it is the strongest male performance I've seen this year.
Yeah. For me, I certainly hope he gets looked at for this. It's hard for me to imagine that he won't. What I love, though, is that even though this could very easily be a one-man play, the supporting characters, it's just a fantastic cast. But I love that there is this self-awareness of, and he has it too, of like, oh, I'm not great, things are not awesome, but then also this like denial of that. And it's just the way that the two identities play is just so good, and everybody there has this genuine admiration for him, like, because he's this fascinating and like incredibly talented artist who is just completely lost to his addiction. And it
did feel really real that way, in the sense of, I am sure you could tell that he was a nightmare, like, to deal with, and you could feel that, especially in Richard Rodgers, just like so frustrated at this, having to put up with this man, and how he made life so difficult. But then you also feel the empathy for him and his character.
Right. And I think that balanced better than I've seen in most movies that deal with like addiction and people with that. Because there's always just this pity only, or anger only, or at least so much more strongly one or the other. And this one felt way more how you would do life, like how you would exist with this person.
Because addiction is inherently narcissistic. It just is, and so that can make a struggle bus to watch the stories, because it's just so narcissistic. And the only thing I would say against the movie is that I do think it was kind of repetitive at a certain point. that it was like, okay, we've seen this same conversation with the bartender, now we're seeing it with Marco Qualley, and now we're seeing it with Richard Rodgers, and now we're seeing it, that I think it could have had like a good 20 minutes trimmed, and I think it would have been a little bit better. Maybe
I think
even,
if you had pulled maybe E.B. White, maybe that scene out.
yeah.
Like that's the character. I feel where I could see where you're saying where there's that repetitive nature. And I think losing him could have maybe helped with that. The main reason I liked him in it is here's a person who's essentially a stranger to him who immediately recognizes both his genius and his problem. And I think that was kind of interesting with
sense.
him. So yeah.
I also was a little bit surprised because I have read a biography on Hart and Rodgers, and I thought he was like full 100% gay, not like
Right.
bi or not had. I mean, I just thought he was all in that camp. That was the way the biography portrayed it. So I was sort of surprised that he seemed so taken with Margaret Qualley's character and almost in love with her. And it's like, what was that? I don't know. I was just surprised by that.
Yeah. I don't know. And it may have been, just the idea. One of my favorite lines from it, and I think I wrote this in my review, but I wrote it down.
She's
because
kind
I
of
really
like
loved it.
portrayed as sort of like the shit's that got us,
Yeah, exactly.
type of thing.
But I love that one of the lines he says is, how can you give voice to the whole world if you don't have the whole world inside of you? And I have to assume that was kind of part of it, if not who he was. And there may have been just a certain amount of like, I can't just come out and say I'm gay, and so we'll just go with a more generalized queer and I like boys. But also she's an easy one to understand why he would be in love with her, because she's beautiful and all of that. So I don't know, like, but overall I really loved it. And
but Ethan Hawke is really good. Like I said, I mean, maybe Michael Shannon in Sinners is on that level, but I have not seen any other male performances this year that are on the level of what he's doing here.
It was
and
also, how did they make him look so short?
Yeah, that's true.
Like, genuinely, I'm like, maybe he is short, but like they really, I don't know what movie tricks they do, but they make him look very small, and it is wild to me.
Yeah, and I do think that anybody that's a Broadway fan should definitely see it, because not only you're going to learn a lot, and also I like I said, I couldn't help but think, what on earth would he think about like Rock of Ages, or just some of these like that Oklahoma seems like heavy compared to
his
what we have
takedowns
now,
of
Broadway.
Oklahoma. When he draws the 3 exclamation points at the end.
Yeah, that was really funny.
10 out of 10.
Oklahoma exclamation point.
Oklahoma exclamation point. Every time. It was so good. Yeah. But yeah.
So
excellent.
All right. Well, I'm just going to read a few Letterboxd responses, some of the ones neither of us got to see. So there was Good Fortune. This is with Keanu Reeves playing an angel. And Matt Negley, he says, Good Fortune is Aziz Ansari's long-awaited feature directorial debut, and much like his work on television, it's an enthusiastic, perceptive, and thoughtfully produced comedy about class dignity, class disparity, pro-unionization, and the everyday people who keep the world turning. While some inconsistent humor and a few jarring editing choices prevent it from realizing its full potential, it continually wears its heart on its sleeve, and so much so that it is hard not to be won over by it. So he gave it 3 stars. My friend Slasher Reviews, he says, I'm loving these random AI rant monologues from Seth Rogen. It takes a bit to find its footing, but when it does, it becomes something both equally funny and all too relatable. Keanu Reeves' comedic timing in this is impeccable. So we kind of forget that Keanu Reeves has a very strong comedic background,
right?
Because he's been doing all his action, but he is Bill and Ted's where he got his start. So he's done a lot of comedy over the years.
Yeah, for sure.
So then another one, Bad Apples. This is Jonathan Etzler. This stars Saoirse Ronan and Brian Rowe. He says election meets misery in this wickedly entertaining dark comedy, Bad Apples. Some of the twists and turns in the narrative can be hard to believe, but what a wild ride. The amazing Saoirse Ronan delivering another brilliant performance as a teacher pushed to the brink of madness. Our friend Alyssa at Mainly Movies, she says, I might be a bit biased as a teacher myself, but Bad Apples is currently a contender for my festival favorite, an extremely dark comedy thriller that repeatedly subverts expectations. This film balances its tone amusingly well and showcases Saoirse Ronan's talents. So that's good. Let's see, a couple others. Sentimental Value. This was a big one.
That was a big one that we both missed.
We both missed because it was screened early in the festival. You had to be there early. Brian Rowe, he says, it's a rich and haunting exploration of fractured family dynamics and the power art has to hurt and heal. Joaquin Trier's latest gem features one of the year's great ensembles, with Renate Rennesvive and Stellan Skarsgård giving deeply moving, Oscar-worthy performances. Nice. And Matt Negley says, it's by far the best film I've seen at Cannes and the best film of the year so far. Joaquin Trier and Renate Rennesvive have done it again as the worst person in the world duo reunite to tell an affecting, complex, and deeply personal story about love, family, home, and artistic expression as a means of healing and moving on. So everyone loves it. That's great. That is, I think, let's see here. Sacrifice. Let's see. We've got
pretty mixed thoughts on Sacrifice.
Alyssa says, a film of two halves. Sacrifice is frustrating movie watching experience. The satire and Chris Evans' funny performance shine in the first half, but the film loses steam when things shift from vapid celebrities to more serious but still absurd cult fare. She gives 2.5. Matt Negley also gives it 2.5. It aims to be a dark comedic satire on environmentalism, faux activism, and hollow celebrity culture. Chris Evans gives one of his funniest performances, a vain actor desperate for a comeback. But the overwrought screenplay favors too much elaborate lore for the cult overhuman drama, leaving Romain Gavras' otherwise stylish direction weighed down by themes it can't fully realize.
Right on. What did people say about I think it's the Lost Bus, the Matthew McConaughey one?
Lost Bus.
Yeah.
Brian Rowe gives it 4 stars. The Lost Bus is one of the most nail-biting films of the year. Masterful director Paul Greengrass bringing his trademark docudrama intensity to this harrowing depiction of the deadly 2018 Paradise wildfires. Matthew McConaughey and America Ferrera are both spectacular. Matt Negley says, The Lost Bus is Paul Greengrass's most ambitious film to date, recounting the 2018 California campfire by combining the epic scale and devastation of the blaze with the intimate story of a reluctant bus driver tasked with saving a busload of children. So that sounds pretty good.
Yeah.
Oh, we definitely want to do Wake Up Dead Man.
Oh, so, yeah, Doy.
Everybody knows I'm not a huge fan of this franchise. That's why I wasn't like super devastated I didn't get to see it. But everybody on Letterboxd is raving. Let's see here.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of best of the 3 was like the Twitter convo that I heard. So
yeah. So Brian Rowe says 3rd time's the charm for Wake Up Dead Man, the deliciously entertaining new installment in Rian Johnson's Knives Out series. I know my friend Monda, she doesn't have a review on here, but I know she was not that big a fan. So that's the only negative I've heard. Brian Sudfeld says Rian Johnson once again cements his status as a modern master of mystery with Wake Up Dead Man. The Knives Out series continues to revitalize the classic whodunit, letting gothic aesthetics, emotional depth, and a knockout ensemble cast, with Josh O'Connor being the standout. I mean, I guess like this is where it's gonna see the difference. Like, I don't think he's done that yet in any of them. So he seems to think this is a continuation of doing that. I would say he's failed in doing that. I feel like they're exposition heavy. The clues aren't that interesting. And the last one, it just drove me crazy that you didn't even that Blump got sidelined for half the movie. You didn't
Yeah,
even get
I
to
agree.
solve the case.
Yeah, I didn't love Glass Onion. I liked the first one pretty well. I thought it was fun. I will 100% watch the new one, probably when it hits Netflix. So, because
Yeah.
I don't think there will be any on-screen screenings here in West Virginia. So,
Yeah. I mean, especially emotional depth. I mean, come on. These movies don't have
well,
emotional
that's not
depth.
why I'm watching Knives Out. I'll say that. So,
But yeah, Matt Negley, Ryan Johnson has done it again. He hasn't done it yet,
yep.
my opinion. But
So
we'll
there we
see.
go.
I mean, hopefully it'll win me over and I'll love it. It'll be amazing. But I really did not like Glass Onion. I thought it was so annoying.
Yeah.
That was not for me. I think that's most of the big ones.
Yeah.
There's Hedda, and that has Tessa Thompson.
Yeah.
But that was Nia DaCosta directing. Ryan
Right.
Rowe says features a spirited performance by the great Tessa Thompson, but sadly, this adaptation often just sits there. The first hour poorly paced and pretty stiff. Thankfully, Nina Haas eventually comes along and infuses the film some much needed wit and vitality. And the reason why I didn't see it, I actually had a ticket, but I decided to see Ann Lee instead. Because that one doesn't have a distributor. I don't know when I'm going to get to see it. Whereas
Right.
Hedda is coming to theaters next month. So
Yeah.
that's why
precisely.
I did that. So I think that covers basically everything.
Yeah.
Let us know what you think about all the different ones we talked about. Which ones are you excited to see? What are interesting to you? We'd love to hear in the comment section. And where do people follow you, your reviews? Are you doing a bunch of different reviews or one main post, or how are you covering
I'm doing like primarily individual reviews. I've got
Okay.
a couple up already. You can always find me if you look for Alise Chaffins, you'll find me everywhere because I'm the only one of me. So
Nice. I mean, we'll have it all in the description. Definitely check that out. And you can find me at Rachel's Reviews all over social media, iTunes, YouTube, and on Rotten Tomatoes. So check that out. Also, make sure that if you are listening on iTunes, leave your ratings and reviews. That really, really helps a lot. And if you are watching on YouTube, please give the video a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. Make sure you check out our playlist with all of our Female Film Critic Panel episodes. And also make sure to check out the playlist with our best of the first 25 years of the century that we did. We were above we were early.
That's right. We were
early.
Before New York
Times. They copied us.
Precisely.
But we have that. That was a lot of fun. You should definitely check it out. And we have the Patreon group, which is the biggest way you can support everything you're doing. You can be part of watch-alongs and other special events. And we have our bonus episodes and other cool things. So definitely check out the Patreon. And then we have a merch store. We have lots of fun movie-inspired designs and Female Film Critic panel logo designs. So check that out. And thanks so much, everybody. We'll talk to you later. Bye.
Bye.